What if we wrote a little jingle?
Yeah. Actually, that'd be cool.
Noises podcast.
All right, done. Drop that in.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the Notable Noises podcast. This is our first episode, number 1 or number 0. I don't know, depending on how we want to start off the order of numbering.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like 1 is way too common. I think we should go with 0.
Let's start with 0. I'm okay starting with 0. I just got a message from the Skype concierge. I don't know what that means. It says, "Hello, Skype here. We'd like to send you tips and hints so you can do more." And then, I don't know, it went away.
Wow. What a nice guy that Skype guy is.
Don't they know we're in the middle of a podcast? Like, I have more important things to do than talk to Skype.
Yeah, I know, like, Discord. Do you use Discord at all?
Occasionally.
I know Discord typically shows, if you're playing a game or something, it shows apps next to your name, like, so-and-so is playing this game, but I guess Skype doesn't show that we're Skyping.
So-and-so is recording a podcast. Please do not disturb.
Yeah. We know that you're recording a podcast somehow.
So if you're wondering who these voices are, my name is Anders Johansson. I founded Notable Noises in January of this year, 2017, just because I wanted to write about music and I wanted to have an outlet where I could talk about the thing that I love the most, which is Star Wars. But in this case, it's music.
That URL wasn't taken.
Yeah, exactly.
Or it was already taken.
Exactly. So yeah, I decided to start a website. I kind of let it sit for a little while. I put up a post in May about this ambient pianist that I found on Bandcamp. He put out an album, and I thought it was fantastic. And I was like, I'm going to write about this with the website that I'm paying for. So I finally ended up putting that to use. And then I put up another post about a week ago. This band called Ranges dropped a single off of their album that's coming out in about 2 weeks from now. But I decided, I have this website, notablenoises.com. I love music. I want to see this thing grow. So I decided to bring my buddy Mike in and help me out with this site. So Mike, if you want to talk a little bit about yourself and what you love to do and all that good stuff, just so people know who you are.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Mike Bliss. I've known Anders for at least 5 years now. I think that sounds about right. According to Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 2012, yeah. Him and I definitely share a strong passion for music in particular. And with an outlet like this, I personally never really delved into just talking about it to an audience. I create music, I consume and watch and listen to all different forms of art within music, but I've never really given it a shot to have conversations about it, and it definitely helps to have a conversation with somebody that I know cares about it just as much as I do. So to have Notable Noises as a website, as a podcast, as an outlet for all different kinds of discussion, whether it's talking about singles or reviewing other top artists or underground artists or interviewing people that need to be heard, I think this is a perfect place for it. So we want to provide a platform for, I think the most useful would be artists that nobody's heard or maybe need more exposure. And we'd love to give those people the opportunity to talk about what they're passionate about, because when you're a musician, you want to share what you do with people, and
right.
Getting that first foot forward is always the hardest. And even in creating anything, really, with this website, we just spent a lot of time trying to develop our logo and the branding and everything like that. And it all came together, and it was really nice and natural feeling. Yeah. But sometimes it doesn't always work out that way. I'm sure I can definitely speak for myself here, where you think of a name or you got like a cool picture or something. You're like, oh yeah, this is super sick. And then when you try to like expand beyond that super cool idea of a name and picture, like it just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see like Anders had this name already, notablenoises.com.
Since January.
That URL since January, and he's made the most expensive 2 posts ever.
I've been paying
through
for
the
that
website
domain name for 8 months, and I've made 2
Yeah.
posts.
So it's nice to see not only was the name already strong enough, but to see it manifest into something already with it being online beyond the website. And now recording episode 0 of the podcast, knowing that it's attached to the name Notable Noises is a really rewarding feeling already.
Yeah, this is really cool for me. It's currently 2:48 in the morning. Mike and I have spent the last probably hour and a half
At least,
to
yeah.
2 hours.
Yeah, I'd say 2 hours.
Yeah, we've gone to Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. We made a Facebook page. Fortunately, somehow, Notable Noises was available on all of those outlets, which I'm really thankful for because
Yeah.
I'm shocked that nobody has come up with that name before because I think it's it feels right for a music outlet to be called Notable Noises. But yeah, Twitter was available, the Instagram was available, the Facebook page hadn't been taken yet. The only thing that we weren't able to get was notablennoises@gmail.com, which that's fine.
That would have been too easy.
I know there had to
have been
thing.
one conflict. Yeah.
So,
No, it's really a relief to have what we both agree is a strong name, but I've gone through so many times where I'm like really excited about a name I come up with, and while the name's fine, there's always some random person that just happens to have that email or happen to have that URL.
right.
And it was a really different like scenario where we're running through this and going, okay, let me check Instagram. Oh, cool. The name is available on Instagram. And then just like going through that with the rest of the social media. And I searched on Twitter just like see if anyone's posted that order of words before or like as a hashtag. And there's one hashtag from 2012 of hashtag Notable Noises, which obviously isn't related to the website at all, but
it was
that
something
just
about
shows
their
how
mom like overhearing something that's like they muttered under their breath or whatever, right?
Yeah, you can find the post if you if you search Notable Noises on Twitter. I know the tweet's there, but yeah, it was talking about hearing noises stealthily because I remember one of the other hashtags was like hashtag hawk or something like that.
Yeah.
So someone got caught doing something.
My Instagram name for the longest time was AC Johansson, which is just my first and middle initial and my last name. And then I changed it to Spark the Forest for a while under my personal Instagram, which I then decided didn't make any sense because I was posting personal things and not allowed to spark the forest. So I made a separate Instagram account for Spark the Forest, and I went to change my name back to AC Johansson, and that Instagram name had been taken.
Oh, no, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, there's another AC
Oh,
Johansson out
geez.
there. I believe it's a woman, too. So that's kind of cool.
Wow.
I should contact them and be like, hey, you took my name.
You jerk. Give me my name back.
Give
I
me
had
my
that
name
first.
back. So now it's just Justice_Nugget, that's fine with me, but it's not as professional.
Yeah. I accidentally started branding myself when I made my Facebook. I've always used Mike is Bliss since 8th grade. But, like, I didn't realize that, like, because I could have chosen anything. I could have chosen such a terrible URL. But even back in 8th grade, I was like, yeah, this works. And I remember making, like, MS Paint creations for my MySpace, utilizing Mike is Bliss in the MS Paint photos. and since then, I've just always used that for everything. And I was talking with Anders earlier while we were creating the website and the social media stuff, how I feel it's very important when you're trying to develop some sort of brand or like get your name out there to have a consistent name across all the platforms, because it gets really, really difficult when you're trying to follow an artist or a band when all their social media accounts are different names.
Right. I'm glad this conversation has kind of gone this direction because I was hoping eventually we'd get on the topic of branding. And I think something really cool that we'll be able to offer to whoever's listening is that, you know, you and I were both young. We're both into music. We, like you said in your introduction, we consume a lot of music, but we also do music. Like I'm in a band. You're on YouTube. We know how important it is to market ourselves.
Yep.
And branding is one of the biggest things that you can do as an up-and-coming musician. And I don't know if everybody out there right now really understands how important it is to have a brand. Excuse me.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a musician or an artist, when you're first starting out, you only think about, this is good that this is your first priority, but you're thinking about, okay, I need to write music. So you get this music written, and then you're kind of caught before the next step, like, okay, where do I even go from here? Like, I can post this on my Facebook, but how much is that really going to do? And social media is only as powerful as you let it be. And there's certain ways to go about things, and there's certain ways to not go about things. And one of those ways to not go about things is to have, 4 different usernames across 4 different social media platforms. It's really, really important to have that consistency when you're trying to find a band, when you're trying to find an artist. Because I'm already very proud of this site because we have that consistency, and that's something that is very valuable. Yeah, very fortunately. Like, that's something that you kind of don't know until you go in and do it. But that goes to say about basically anything within music, especially, where if you're trying to get yourself out there, the only way to do that is to put yourself out there. And making a YouTube channel, making an Instagram account, doing anything like that, like, you need to start somewhere. And you only have one opportunity to start unless you want to rebrand yourself entirely. So it's better to do it right the first time if you can.
Right. And like I said before, you and I, we spent a good 2 hours before recording this podcast getting our Instagram established, getting our Twitter established, making sure everything was consistent all across the board. Because I speaking as a consumer of music, I know that one of the most important things to me is consistency. And if I can't find a band's Bandcamp page and it's under, such and such Light of the Architect LZIL US and I can't find it.
.bandcamp.com.
.bandcamp.com, exactly. Then I'm not gonna go the extra effort to type in all that extra stuff or search for, okay, well, maybe they put in their state name or maybe they put in this other thing. Branding is very important, and it's really important to have it consistent across all social media accounts. And I don't know if people really take the time to consider that before they jump into content, which is arguably just as important as branding. Right.
Yeah, I mean, to brand, you need to have content to brand. So I mean, obviously, you can't have. I don't think you should have the content until you have all the branding developed and out there, because that just gets messy. Like, you don't have, like, say you got a YouTube channel, you don't have a profile picture, you don't have a Facebook page, but like you just have like one random video. Like,
do we have a profile picture yet? I don't know.
Yeah, let's see if it's updated.
We're waiting for YouTube to accept our profile picture, and it's still not up. So
okay, well, maybe by the time this is up,
I hope
our profile picture will be active and we won't look hypocritical for talking about this. But I don't know, like, to see it obviously looks a lot more professional too, to have a consistency, and like, it looks like you're taking every platform seriously.
Right. And I mean, even just like something as simple as the logo that you and I came up with. Is it the flashiest logo? No. But it's effective, and you know what you're getting when you see it. You see it on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on the website. It's, like I said, consistent. It doesn't look like a black metal band's logo where, like, you squint at it just even trying to read it. You know what it is. And that's important to you and I, is that when you see it, you know what it is. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. You don't have to think too much about it. It's there, and you know what it is. And that's important to me. And I know that's important to you, too, and that was cool.
No, it definitely is. It's interesting that this podcast, I mean, there's definitely a focus mainly on music, but there are a lot of elements, especially from a listener's perspective, that maybe listeners don't think about, that goes into the music that they're consuming. And one big aspect of that is the branding of it. And I know like a lot of bands that I gravitate towards typically have an aesthetic or a visual that I just really enjoy about them, and that furthers my interest in that band, is if they have a good image, if they have a good style for their branding. I know for your stuff, for example, like I love the visuals that you put together for like the album art and stuff, and like that engages me more as a listener to want to check your stuff out, because I see that and I go, okay, this looks really good, and then I check out your music.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. But I've always felt like album art, especially, is like a very important aspect for songs and stuff specifically, because like branding in general is obviously important, but when we're talking about music specifically, I feel like album art is very, very important, and it can especially help describe like either your album or single, whatever it might be that you're releasing it with. It can help tell even a further story about it, give it more layers and depth and detail,
right,
with just a picture.
And it's funny that the two end up going hand in hand, because obviously music is an audio experience and seeing album art is a visual experience, and the two don't go together at all. But just something about seeing an album and seeing the artwork makes you already start to like develop an impression of the music without having ever heard anything. So,
which is so cool.
I know, but it can be advantageous and it can be disadvantageous at the same time. So a lot of thought has to be put into the artwork, and that's a very important thing for me with my stuff with Spark the Forest. And I mean, even just the logo that I made, my sister has been a graphic designer for, I don't know, 15 years now, and she complimented me like a couple weeks ago when I was putting together my shirt for the latest printing that I did. She said, "I just want to tell you, like, you have a very effective logo." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes,
"Really?"
Well, yeah, I was excited to hear that, because she's a professional graphic designer, and I mean, this was something that, I mean, it, like I said about our logo, it's not the flashiest logo. It's the word Spark the Forest in a box, and that's it. And she said your logo stands out among like other things. Like if you saw it on a poster or on a t-shirt, your eyes just for some reason gravitate towards that logo because it's so simple and so effective. And I was like, wow, thank you for saying that.
I definitely
like,
see
it's
that
cool to hear a professional's opinion on something like that.
When you're looking on Bandcamp and stuff, well, I don't know, do you typically go on Bandcamp and like scroll through releases? Or
I do that
a
lot. Yeah, I do that a lot.
So as someone who does that, when you're going through Bandcamp, do you click on artists' music because of the name, or do you click on it because of the album art first?
Usually, okay, so this is kind of funny. In ambient stuff, I've come to kind of pick up on patterns, and I don't know why, but like certain music will have a certain type of artwork associated with it, and I've definitely seen that. Yeah, I've been able to like kind of pick out just based on the artwork alone, which I know I just said the two don't go hand in hand at all, because you're looking at something that represents something that you listen to. But for some reason, somehow, the ambient stuff that I like to listen to, all like the artwork for all of it kind of shares a common characteristic. And I can kind of see based on just the artwork, like, oh, I might like that. So I'll give it a play and listen for about a minute and then go on to the next thing. But yeah, artwork is very important to me when I'm just scrolling through Bandcamp looking for new stuff.
What would you say is that characteristic or characteristics that you notice typically in that genre?
For the ambient type of stuff that I like to listen to, the album artwork is very minimal, but also kind of abstract. So I'll see something that has those characteristics, and I'll be like, okay, these other things that I've enjoyed listening to also had that. So maybe this will, more times than not, it sounds like what I would be interested in listening to, but I mean, every once in a while, there's going to be something where I'm like, all right, this is complete trash, and I'm not interested in this at all. So
you got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So I skip to the next thing. And I mean, it's not that music was trash because somebody spent a lot of time and effort making
Well,
it. It's
yeah,
just,
sure. Yeah,
it's
it's
not
all
what
subjective.
I wanted to listen to. Yeah, exactly. Which is part of the beauty in music.
That's interesting because I think I typically gravitate towards when I'm looking and scrolling through a sea of things I've never heard of. I typically look at the album art, and secondary is like, do I think the artist name is cool? Like, do I think the band name's cool? But usually, I just look at the art, and if I think it looks cool, I'll click on it and I'll give it a play like immediately, because I've always found strength in like a great priority in album art, and that's why I think I gained interest in like doing photography and stuff as I grew up, because I realized how much I enjoyed album art and how cool album art is. And a lot of my album art, particularly, I use photos that I take. Mm-hmm. And I try to work them into relating to whatever I'm writing about in that particular release. But yeah, I definitely noticed patterns too within different genres. I mean, for a long time, back in like 2012, when progressive metal or gent, if you will, was poppin', there's a large influx of space everything. Yeah, I don't know if you caught that in that time
I didn't
period,
listen to enough of that genre, but the bands that I did listen to definitely had that.
There's a parody. I want to say that was Jared Alonji. He has his joke band. God, I can't think of the name right now. It's basically ripping on at that time period, because there was a time where we'll just call the band, in this hypothetical, Geometry. Like, it'd be like geometry, and then it'd just be like some space term that they looked up on Google, like a 3-word long space term that no one's ever heard of before, but like it just wasn't used for a song name before. So they decided to do that. And for a long time, it's like, okay, this just looks like another gent band release, because it's like, all right, we got some stars on the album art and like 19 different planets that don't exist.
Yep. But because of the other music that you listen to, you can kind of...
I knew what to expect.
Exactly. You can infer based on the album artwork alone, okay, this album's going to sound like this other album, just because they're trying to go for that popular thing right now.
Right, and that goes back to our original point of just how important, like, branding yourself, and even as specifically as album art goes, like, it's important. It's important to get people's attention. It's important for yourself to look more professional. Just there's so many elements that go into that. And sometimes it's a bit overwhelming, because, I mean, look at what we did tonight. Like we've been talking about, just developing the website and getting the social media running. There was a lot that went into that.
Right.
Granted, maybe doing it all in one night wasn't the most efficient option, but like it felt right to keep going with it, so we did.
Yeah, and we also lucked out in that the Instagram name was available and the Twitter name was available, and you and I both had a very similar idea for what the logo should look like, so that made it a breeze.
That was nice.
But I know that a lot of times individuals or bands will spend weeks trying to figure out, what should our name be? What should the album artwork for this album be? What should our logo look like? So if it's anywhere from like 2 hours, the 2 hours that you and I spent, or a month, like there's no one right way to do it. As long as at the end of the whatever allotted amount of time it took, you're happy with what you made, that's all that matters. And I think people will kind of get hung up on, well, we only have this amount of time, so we got to get it done in this amount of time, and whatever it is, that is what it is. No, just spend a little bit more time perfecting it, make those final tweaks, and if you're happy with it, then use that one.
That's a good message. I think.
Hey, thanks.
I think that. Yeah, I like that. Who said that?
It was me. I said
that. Quote me. I own that. I own that sentence. No, that's a very good point. Things that you're going to be proud of will typically take more than just a little while. Sometimes you luck out and create something in a minimal amount of time that ends up being successful. But especially when you're trying to grow something like a channel, you're going to have to put a lot of time into it, and you're going to have to do a lot of things where maybe people aren't listening for a little while, but the more work you put in, the more the world typically gives back.
Yeah. That's definitely true. And I don't know why that happens to be the case, but I mean, you can tell if somebody just threw something together, like a song, if they just threw it together in 20 minutes. As a listener, you can tell. Or if they spent weeks or months or whatever working on it, you can tell that too. Like, you can tell somebody cared about this. They put a lot of time and effort into it, and I can tell just by listening to it that there was love put into this.
Yeah, and that's always a comforting feeling as a listener and as somebody who writes music, to listen to a piece of music and just knowing it immediately, like, wow, they actually care about the construction of every part of the song. For example, a bad example of that is YouTuber Jake Paul lately has been pumping out just really, really terrible songs. But literally at the beginning of, I forgot which song it was, but I mean, they all have like millions of views. But there's one song where he literally just states at the beginning, like, hey, we wrote this in a day. It's like, okay, good preface. Like, you literally want the people you're listening to know that you just put only a day's worth of effort into it.
Mike and I, we have a mutual friend. His name is Scott, and we'll get him on the podcast eventually because I think it'll be fun to talk to him. But he and I, we were talking about mixing because he's an engineer and a producer, and he said that usually people will brag about the fact that they got a mix done in a day, and it never turns out well. They're like, oh, yeah, I mixed that in a day. That's why it sounds like a steaming pile of garbage.
Yeah, you could do a lot of things in a day.
Yeah.
There's some things that could be accomplished in a day and function and be sound, but I don't think that should be one of those.
Yeah, I don't think so either. If it was part of like a challenge, like write and mix a song in a day, then cool. You go into it with that expectation that maybe it's not going to be as polished as it could be, but they did it in a day, so what they were able to accomplish is amazing. But if somebody's just bragging about that, then it's not going to be very good.
That's equivalent to me going, hey, Anders, I decided today I'm just going to eat 3 dinners all at once. Like, did you do it?
Yes. Was it the best idea? No.
Absolutely not.
Will you regret it tomorrow? Definitely.
Yes. I'm already regretting it today. But, yeah, granted, like, I'm sure there are producers out there that are able to pump out mixes quickly, but I would hope that you would take at least more than a day to really give an honest listen, because, granted, I mean, I guess it could apply differently to different situations, because if you're producing something that's maybe just like a piano and vocals, maybe that would go quicker than, like a full band. Yeah.
I think Ryan and Scott said that they spent at least 10 hours on the last Levitated EP on ghost notes. Like, just ghost notes for the snare. They spent 10 hours just adjusting placement and velocity on just snare ghost notes. And then Scott said that he spent about 60 hours total on those 3 songs. And you can tell that he cared about the final sound. And I don't know, that's just using an example of somebody that I listen to talk about things like that. So
yeah, that's another realm that personally, I mean, both of us I just call us DIY artists.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Not that Scott isn't DIY, because he has an entire studio at his house built up that he's been building up for a few years now. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to hear from like a producer's perspective, like what really goes into production as far as time goes. Because I mean, I've definitely spent hours upon hours producing my stuff, but I guess I've never really thought of how much time that actually takes, because when I'm working on music and when I'm working on anything like that I'm passionate about, I don't really look at the time or think about the time. It just, anytime I see the time, that's a lot of use of the word time. I don't think that word's been used in the sentence that much in one sentence. But anyway, I digress. Whenever I'm working on music, the only time I realize how late it is just like, oh wow, it's been 4 hours. Okay. And then I just move on.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like, oh God, I can't believe I've been working on this for so long. I gotta stop. It's never the case.
Yeah.
When I'm working on stuff, it's I begin it, and when I'm done, I'm done. So it's interesting to hear, like, yeah, I've spent 60 hours working on these 3 songs. It's like, wow, I wonder how much time I've spent working on a song or working on a set of songs. Because honestly, I've had days where I work on music for 8 to 10 hours, and like it just happens.
Yeah.
But like those 8 to 10 hours aren't 8 to 10 hours I was like, really upset by, or like I was just struggling through. Like that was 8 to 10 hours I spent because I was working on something I was super passionate about.
Right. You've had a couple times where you've texted me and you've said like, hey, I woke up with this idea, or like this short little riff or vocal melody or something. And then you were like, 7 hours later, here's a demo. And I was just like, geez, dude, you spent 7 hours working on this today?
Yeah.
And you just because you woke up with one short idea.
We'll definitely have to get into that on another podcast with the process of things, because I definitely have discovered a few different ways of how I get like at least a foundation for a song going, and I'm sure you have your perspective on that too, so that should be interesting to talk about.
That's the cool thing, is that I'm sure, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, it's different for literally everyone.
Yeah,
I don't think
it's insane.
No 2 people go about it exactly the same way, and I think that's fascinating.
It's very fascinating. Art in general, just music, everything about music. The more and more I grow up, like I keep learning things, and I think that it's amazing to have something that you can keep learning from that you're actually enjoying. It's not like I'm learning because I'm reading about it that I need to like pass a class or anything. Like I keep
Right.
learning things about music just from people I know, from things I listen to. Like it feels like there's an endless amount of knowledge I could obtain just by listening to music and consuming it.
Yeah. And part of the reason that I'm excited to do this podcast is not just to talk about music that I'm listening to with a really good friend of mine. It's like you and I, we both know how to do music. We both do it differently. And I think if anybody's listening, they're interested in creating music, it would be comforting to hear that there's no one way to do it.
Yes.
My process is completely different from your process, and yours is completely different from Scott's, and Scott's is different from Ryan's, and there's no one right way. But I think just hearing that I do it differently and you do it differently and this other person does it differently can be so liberating, because I think a lot of times online, in things that I've read and in YouTube videos that I've watched, people have said like, this is exactly how you need to do this, and you need to do this every time, and if you don't do it this way, then your music's going to sound like
that's where it gets
garbage.
Scary.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh well, okay, I guess
I don't even want to try now.
Yeah, I'm not a musician then, I guess, if I'm not doing this.
Right.
But no, it was very comforting for me to hear somebody else on YouTube say, well, I do it this way, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
okay, well, good.
Thank
and
you.
I whoever listens to this, I want them to like learn stuff from us, even if it's something as simple as you're doing it the right way, however you're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect note to leave this episode off on, is to, as a musician, if you're planning on delving into writing your own songs, or maybe it's not even music, if you're just looking to begin a passion in the arts in particular, there's no right way to necessarily do it. Everyone goes about their creative process differently. And if you have a way of doing things, then do it and see if it works for you. And if not, there's thousands upon thousands of different ways to change it and to improve and to go about it the way you want to go about it.
Exactly. Well, this was fun.
Yeah, episode 0, I think, is a good episode to listen to. But it sounds like we covered a few different things. We covered branding. We covered a little bit about production. I don't know. I'm glad that there's some variety in here. So if you're listening, I hope you guys and gals enjoyed this podcast. And there's definitely going to be a lot more music talk, a lot more artists and bands that I'm sure we'll be excited about to feature in our little conversation.
Yeah, if you are listening and you have any feedback you'd like to give us, or bands you'd like us to check out, or things you want us to talk about in future episodes, we would be more than happy to follow along with whatever you suggest. So thank you for listening.
Yes,
this has been episode 0 of Notable Noises podcast, and Mike and I will talk to you next time. Take care.
Thank you, guys.